My father left my mother for his assistant, and now my stepmother wants me out, but she doesn't realize the house belongs to my mom. I am an 18-year-old guy, and my life has been completely turned upside down in the last year. It all began when my dad, who's 46, left my mom, who's 44, for his 29-year-old assistant. I never saw it coming. My parents always seemed happy together, at least I thought they were. Growing up, we were a typical middle-class family. Dad worked as a supervisor at a local factory, and Mom was a part-time teacher. We lived in a lovely home in the city, took annual vacations, and generally enjoyed a good life. As an only child, I received a lot of attention from both parents. Dad was always the stricter one, pushing me to excel in academics and athletics. He believed I needed to be tough to succeed. Mom, on the other hand, was more relaxed, encouraging my creative side and always telling me to pursue my passions. Things began to change about 2 years ago when Dad received a promotion. He started working longer hours and seemed more stressed. That's when he hired Sarah as his personal assistant. At first, I didn't think much of it. Sarah would sometimes come to our house for work-related tasks, and she always seemed nice enough. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. Dad started working late more frequently, missing my school events and claiming he was overwhelmed at work. Mom tried to hide her worries, but I could see she was upset. There were quiet arguments behind closed doors that would stop as soon as I walked by. Then, about a year ago, Dad dropped the bombshell. He sat Mom and me down and announced he was leaving us for Sarah. He said he had fallen in love with her and that they were going to get married. Mom just sat there, silent and pale. I was in shock. I couldn't believe my dad would do this to us. The next few weeks were a blur. Dad moved out, and Mom fell into a deep depression. She barely ate or left her room. I tried my best to take care of her, but I was struggling too. I was angry at Dad, worried about Mom, and scared about what would happen to us. About a month after Dad left, Mom decided to stay with her sister for a while. She said she needed time to heal and figure things out. I understood, but I felt abandoned. Dad had already left, and now Mom was going too. She asked if I wanted to come with her, but I chose to stay in our house. It was my home, and I didn't want to leave my school and friends. That's when things got really complicated. Dad moved back into the house with Sarah, saying it would be better for me to have a family around. I hated the idea, but I felt like I had no choice. Mom was gone, and I was still a minor. At first, Dad and Sarah tried to act like everything was normal. They asked about my day and tried to engage me in conversation at dinner, but I wasn't having it. I kept to myself, spent most of my time in my room, and only came out when necessary. Sarah, or should I say my stepmother, God, I hate calling her, that started trying to play house. She tried to set rules, tell me to do chores, and even attempted to ground me once when I came home late. I just ignored her. She wasn't my mom, and I didn't owe her anything. As the weeks went by, Sarah became more controlling. She complained to Dad about my attitude and my slipping grades, which had declined because, surprise, surprise, I was dealing with a ton of emotional turmoil. Even the way I dressed became an issue. Dad, who used to be my biggest defender, just went along with whatever she said. Things came to a head last week when I had a big project due. I'd been working on it in the garage, but Sarah decided that the garage needed to be cleaned out that very day. When I told her I needed the space for my project, she said my hobby wasn't as important as having a tidy house. I lost it. I yelled at her, telling her she had no right to make decisions about my life or this house. I might have also called her some names I am not proud of. Dad came home in the middle of this and, instead of listening to my side, immediately took Sarah's part. He started lecturing me about respect and how I needed to listen to my parents. That's when I really blew up. I told them they weren't my parents, that my real mom was the one they had driven away, and that I hated both of them. Sarah started crying fake tears, I am sure, and Dad got really angry. He told me if I couldn't respect their rules, maybe I should go live with my mom. I said fine. I'd rather live in a tent than stay with them. That's when Sarah said, fine, pack your bags. You have until the end of the week to get out. I was stunned. They were actually kicking me out. I am still in high school, for crying out loud. I locked myself in my room and called Mom, sobbing. That's when she dropped a bombshell on me. The house we're living in isn't Dad's, it's Mom's. Apparently, it was a gift from my maternal grandparents when Mom and Dad got married, and they had put it solely in Mom's name to ensure she'd always have a home, no matter what happened. Mom had never told Dad this, always letting him believe the house was theirs. When they divorced, Mom didn't ask Dad to leave the house because she thought it was important for me to have my father around. She trusted that he'd continue to put me first, even with his new relationship. But now, hearing how they were treating me, she was furious. Mom told me not to worry. She'd handle everything. She said she'd be home tomorrow and that Dad and Sarah were the ones who'd be leaving, not me. I am sitting in my room right now, alternating between feeling scared, angry, and weirdly triumphant. I don't know what's going to happen when Mom gets here, but I know it's going to be intense. I'll update when I can. Am I wrong for feeling a bit excited about this? Part of me feels guilty for potentially making Dad and Sarah homeless, but another part feels like they deserve it after how they've treated me and Mom. I don't know what to think anymore. Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect my post to blow up like this. Thank you all for your support and advice. A lot has happened in the last few days, so here is an update. Mom came home the day after I posted. She arrived early in the morning before Dad and Sarah were awake. We had a long talk where she apologized for leaving me alone to deal with everything. She explained that she had been in a really bad place mentally after the divorce and needed time to heal. She also said she regretted not telling me about the house situation earlier, but she had hoped it wouldn't come to this. When Dad and Sarah came downstairs, they were shocked to see Mom in the kitchen. Dad started to say something, but Mom cut him off. She calmly explained that this was her house and that she wanted them out by the end of the week. You should have seen their faces. Dad turned pale, and Sarah's jaw practically hit the floor. That's when she dropped a bombshell on me. The house we're living in isn't Dad's, it's Mom's. Apparently, it was a gift from my maternal grandparents when Mom and Dad got married, and Dad started sputtering about how this was his house too, that he had paid the mortgage for years. Mom just slid the deed across the table to him. His name wasn't on it. Sarah got angry, yelling about how they couldn't just be thrown out, that they had rights. Mom just looked at her and said, "You had no problem throwing my underage son out of his home. At least I am giving you a week to find a new place." Dad tried to appeal to Mom's emotions, talking about our history in the house, how it had been our home for so many years. Mom wasn't having it. She said it stopped being his home the day he chose her over his family. They argued for a while, with Dad threatening legal action and Sarah alternating between crying and yelling. Mom stood her ground. She had already talked to a lawyer and knew her rights. The house was solely in her name, and Dad had no claim to it. Eventually, Dad and Sarah retreated to their room. We could hear them arguing behind the closed door. Mom and I spent the day catching up and making plans. She's moving back in permanently, and we're going to redecorate the house to make it feel like ours again. The next few days were tense. Dad and Sarah mostly stayed in their room, only coming out to eat or use the bathroom. They tried a few more times to argue with Mom, but she remained firm. I overheard Dad on the phone with a lawyer, who must have told him the same thing Mom did because he seemed even more defeated afterward. On the third day, Sarah left. She took her stuff and went to stay with a friend. She didn't even say goodbye to me, not that I cared. Dad seemed lost after she left. He tried to talk to me a few times, but I wasn't ready to forgive yet. The day before they were supposed to leave, Dad asked to talk to Mom and me together. He apologized for everything he had done. He admitted that he had handled the divorce terribly and that he had been an awful father to me over the past year. He said he realized now how selfish he had been and how much he had hurt us. Mom listened quietly, then told him that while she appreciated his apology, it didn't undo the damage he had caused. She said he needed to work on himself before he could hope to repair his relationship with me. I didn't say much during this conversation. Part of me wanted to forgive Dad, to have things go back to the way they were, but a bigger part of me was still angry and hurt. I told Dad I needed time and space to process everything. Dad left the next day. It was strange watching him pack up his life into his car before he left. He hugged me and told me he loved me. I didn't say it back, but I did hug him. It felt like the end of a chapter in my life. Now it's just Mom and me in the house. We're slowly settling into a new routine. Mom's looking for a job in town so she can move back permanently. I'm catching up on my schoolwork and trying to process everything that's happened. I am still angry at Dad, but I am also sad. I miss the relationship we used to have, but I don't know if we can ever get that back. Mom says it'll take time and that it's okay to have mixed feelings about everything. As for Sarah, I heard from a friend that she and Dad broke up. Apparently, she didn't sign up for all this drama. Can't say I am sad about that. I'll update again if anything significant happens. Thank you all again for your support. It's been a crazy ride, but I am hopeful that things will get better from here. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has changed, some for the better, some, well, it's complicated. First, the good news. Mom has officially moved back home, and it's been great having her around again. We've been spending a lot of time together, catching up on everything we missed during our time apart. She found a job at a local publishing company, which she's really excited about. It's nice to see her happy again. We've also been redecorating the house. We painted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and even started a small vegetable garden in the backyard. It feels like we're reclaiming our space, making new memories to replace the painful ones. My grades have improved now that things have settled down at home. I am even thinking about college applications, something that seemed impossible a few months ago. Mom's been really supportive, helping me research schools and programs. Now for the complicated part, Dad's been trying to make amends. He calls regularly and has been asking to see me. At first, I ignored his calls and messages. I was still too angry and hurt to deal with him. But after talking it over with Mom and my therapist, I started seeing one. It's been really helpful. I decided to give him a chance. We met at a cafe last week. It was awkward at first. Neither of us seemed to know what to say. But eventually, we started talking. Dad apologized again for everything that happened. He said he'd been going to therapy too, trying to understand why he did what he did. He told me about his own childhood things I'd never known before. His father had been abusive, always putting him down and telling him he wasn't good enough. Dad said he'd spent his whole life trying to prove his worth, always chasing the next achievement. When he got the promotion and met Sarah, it was like he saw a chance to be the successful and important man his father always said he couldn't be. He admitted it was no excuse for how he treated Mom and me. But hearing about his past helped me understand him a little better. He seemed genuinely remorseful and said he wanted to try to rebuild our relationship if I was willing. I told him I needed more time, that while I appreciated his honesty, I wasn't ready to let him back into my life fully yet. He said he understood and that he'd wait until I was ready no matter how long it took. As for Sarah, it turns out their breakup wasn't as final as we thought. They're still in contact, trying to work things out. When Dad told me this, I felt that old anger rising up again, but he assured me that things would be different this time. He said he'd made it clear to Sarah that if they got back together, she needed to respect his relationship with me and Mom. I am not sure how I feel about this. Part of me thinks Dad deserves a chance at happiness, but another part is worried he'll fall back into old patterns. Mom says it's not our place to judge, that Dad needs to figure things out for himself. She's been surprisingly understanding about the whole thing. Here has been an unexpected development with my grandparents, Mom's parents. When they heard about everything that happened, they were furious with Dad, but they were also upset with Mom for not telling them how bad things had gotten. Apparently, there had been some tension between Mom and her parents for years, stemming from their overprotectiveness. This whole situation seems to have brought them closer together. Grandma and Grandpa have been visiting more often, helping out around the house and spending time with me. It's nice to have more family around, even if the circumstances that brought us together were less than ideal. As for me, I am taking things one day at a time. Some days are better than others. There are still moments when I get angry thinking about everything that happened, but there are also days when I feel hopeful about the future. I am learning that family is complicated. People make mistakes, sometimes big ones, and while forgiveness isn't always easy or even possible, understanding can help ease the pain a little. I don't know what the future holds for my family. Will Dad and Sarah work things out? I don't know what the future holds for my family. Will Dad and Sarah work things out? Will I ever fully trust Dad again? Can our family heal from all this? I don't have answers to these questions yet. What I do know is that I am stronger than I thought I was. I've survived one of the toughest years of my life, and I am still standing. I have a mom who loves me, grandparents who support me, and even a dad who's trying to make things right. It's not the family I had a year ago, but maybe, just maybe, it can be a good one in its own way. Thank you all for listening to my story and for your support throughout this journey. Your kind words and advice have meant more than you know. I'll update again if there are any major developments, but for now, I am focusing on healing and moving forward. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have progressed. Life has settled into a new normal, though it's still a work in progress. Mom and I have really found our groove living together. We've established new routines and traditions like Sunday brunch and movie nights. She's thriving at her new job and has even started dating again. It was weird at first, but I am happy to see her moving on and finding joy. As for Dad, our relationship has been slowly improving. We've been meeting regularly, usually for lunch or to do something together, like playing basketball. These meetings are still sometimes awkward, but they're getting easier. Dad's been consistent in his efforts to rebuild our relationship, which I appreciate. He and Sarah did end up getting back together, which I had mixed feelings about initially. However, true to his word, Dad has maintained boundaries. Sarah doesn't come to our meetings, and Dad doesn't try to force a relationship between us. He says he understands that it's up to me if I ever want to have a relationship with her. I graduated high school a couple of months ago. Both Mom and Dad attended the ceremony. It was tense at first, but they managed to be civil for my sake. Sarah didn't come, which I was relieved about. It wasn't the family picture I had imagined a year ago, but it was okay. I am heading to college in the fall. I decided on a school that's about 2 hours away, close enough to visit home regularly, but far enough to have my own space. Mom's been amazing, helping me prepare for this new chapter. Dad's been supportive too, offering to help with expenses and move-in day. My relationship with my grandparents has continued to grow stronger. They've become a much bigger part of my life, and I am grateful for their support and wisdom. They've shared stories about Mom's childhood and their own lives, helping me understand my family history better. As for me, I feel like I've grown a lot through this experience. Therapy has been incredibly helpful in processing my emotions and developing coping strategies. I've learned a lot about forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself too. I've realized it's okay to still feel angry sometimes and that healing isn't a linear process. I've also learned valuable lessons about communication and setting boundaries. I am more assertive now about expressing my needs and feelings, which has improved all my relationships. Looking back, I can see how far we've all come. A year ago, I couldn't imagine feeling okay again. Now, while things aren't perfect, they're manageable. I've accepted that our family will never be what it once was, but that doesn't mean it can't be good in its own way. As I prepare for college, I feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. I am looking forward to new experiences and opportunities, but I'm also a bit anxious about leaving the stability Mom and I have built. However, I know I have a strong support system behind me. Dad and I had a heart-to-heart recently where he expressed how proud he was of me for how I've handled everything. He apologized again for putting me through so much pain and promised to continue working on being a better father. It was an emotional conversation, but a needed one. Mom continues to be my rock. She's encouraged me to keep an open mind about my relationship with Dad, while also reminding me that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being. Her strength and resilience throughout this whole ordeal have been inspiring. As for the house, it truly feels like home again. The painful memories have been replaced by new, happier ones. Mom and I have talked about what will happen to it when I am at college. For now, it'll remain our home base, a place I can always return to. I am not sure what the future holds, but I feel better equipped to handle whatever comes my way. This experience, as painful as it was, has taught me so much about resilience, forgiveness, and the complexities of family dynamics. Thank you all for following my story and for your support throughout this journey. Your kindness and advice have been a source of comfort during some really tough times. As I embark on this new chapter of my life, I carry with me the lessons learned and the strength gained from this experience